Hello, guys. Today I have the author Conor Coady here with me to talk about his upcoming book, It Ain't Easy Sometimes. So, Conor, to begin with, we're really interested in the author behind this book. So, please just tell me about yourself. Who is Conor?
Who is Conor? Well, I'm an engineer. I work in the renewables industry, and I guess I've traveled a lot of my life. I've lived in New Zealand. I've lived in the UK, Germany, various places in Ireland, and I'm sort of semi-nomadic. And at the moment, I live in Ethiopia, and I have done for the last 3 or 4 years. And I guess much of the inspiration for the book has come from that. In terms of who am I, I would say I'm almost a proud pessimist. I think the world is full of optimists, but the good thing about a pessimist is somebody that sees trouble in the horizon coming. And it's kind of what I don't see it as a negative thing. It's sort of what drives me, but it sort of has to be. It's an attitude that has to be tamed as well, not to be putting a downer on it, making sure you're the last person to speak, or not being down on other people's motivation or ideas for being optimist. It's just that, I think a pessimist has their place as well. So yeah, I think people would see me in that way. I probably wouldn't call myself a pessimist most of the time. I'd say I'm more of a realist, but a pessimist would say that. So yeah, so that's who I am. I'm also quite creative as well, though. I come from I suppose musicians and artists, and growing up in Galway, I was very much influenced by that. By people that it wasn't necessarily the main string to their bow, but everybody had an eye to it, and I suppose in things like Mockness and the Druid, and art and music. The music revival of the 70s and 80s, I was very much influenced by all of that. So it's always been around, and it's a big part of me. And also, I think coming from the west of Ireland as well, I went to visit Forbo Beach, where I grew up, just a few days ago, and I remember it as being beautiful, but when you're there, it's stunning. And I was very lucky to grow up as a young child there. So yeah. So that's me in a nutshell.
Really nice. So how did you come to write books to become an author?
Well, I think I think I've always written, and I've always been compelled to find ways to express myself. And I would have been, I guess I would have been encouraged to express myself. My mother is a wonderful artist, and I probably have some gregarious sensibilities of my father about being loud and vibrant when so expression is I was definitely encouraged by my parents, is what I want to say, to be expressive, and writing poetry just seemed to be the right thing to do, and keeping a diary, expressing especially when I was younger, in my teenage years, when I started to write, and it was a way of saying things which I didn't really feel comfortable about saying, maybe in with my teenage peers or that. So and I think a lot of people, this is where they start writing, in their early teenage years.
So what is your book It Ain't Easy Sometimes about?
So the phrase "it ain't easy sometimes" was an expression my father used to use sometimes, and I guess I grew up in the 80s, and it wasn't easy sometimes, and that was just it was just a way of getting on with life and whatever. So that's the influence there. And the book is very much about fatherhood, and it's very much about my perspective. For a lot of my influences, my father died relatively young, and over 20 years ago now. Yeah, so those kind of things, I have a deep nostalgia for yeah, for his influence on me. And then the front cover of the book, which I can show you here, is the mescal flower. Now the picture is a little bit not true to reality, let's say, because the flower is actually quite small, and it's a daisy. It's a type of daisy. The big celebration, probably the biggest in the Ethiopian calendar, which is yeah, much of the book has flavors of Ethiopia in it. The mescal flower is a small daisy, and it happens to be in abundance at this time of year, coming up to late September, when they have the mescal celebrations as part of their Christian Orthodox calendar. And it's a great time of celebration, and people will wear the mescal flower. And there's a lot of white robes. There's a lot of religious celebration and joy. It's really their New Year's and their Christmas all rolled into one. They are quite a religious state, but I guess there's a connection there as well, because like the daisy is important there. I see the daisy as very much it's very much part of Ireland. It's not any like national symbol, but it's kind of it's a symbol of hope for me, and it's sort of fragility as well, hope and fragility, I think, which is a beautiful thing. So it's my favorite flower. So yeah, so that's my connection, or that's why the book is designed that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. So where did you mentioned it a little bit in the beginning, but where did your ideas come from, or where do you look for inspiration when you write poetry?
Yeah, I guess it's yeah, a lot of the time my poems come very, very quickly, and there's very little editing involved. Oftentimes my best poems will be like that. There is a poem in the book about breaking and mending the softness of dark. And this was a poem that came to me instantly at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and was written on site. So some of the poems are very much snapshot ideas, and I kind of really believe in that. In if you think a good idea for a poem is, you know, this would be a good idea for a poem, I must think about that some more. I mean, I have ideas like that it take years to write, and the poem never gets written, and when it does, it's not quite as good as you wanted. But I think the quick kind of the momentary idea, and especially if you come up with a different slant or a different way of thinking of something, or an analogy, you know, these kind of things strike you, and this is what you want to share with other people as well, because I mean, most ideas that are around us are pretty much understood, and they're echoed continually. So if you can find a new way to look at things, but I mean, primarily the poems are just for myself, for my own expression. I'm not writing them specifically for anyone, but I do like to share them as well. So yeah.
Do you have something that you want your readers to take away with them when they read your poems?
Just I'm not sure really, but I suppose I do want to. I mean, I don't think that when I'm writing it, but I do. If somebody can, yeah, if it can make a connection with somebody, and you know, if somebody goes, oh, that, you know, that really makes sense, that rings true, or that, yeah, it's just it's a cultural connection, you know. And I don't know how, it's hard to say how much your poetry or your expression is influenced by the culture you come, you know, that you live in. But yeah, I don't. It's hard for me to say really. I would love for people in Ethiopia to read some of my poems about Addis, and for it to ring true with them. But you know, I don't. You know, that sometimes that might be the case. I do like to keep my poems particularly sort of simple, or straightforward. Use easy words, easy language that's everyday. I don't go in for deep or historical sort of ideas, where the reader would need a degree in Greek or something. I don't that never went with me. So I like to keep them for the everyday person. So it's really about communication and connecting with somebody. Yeah. And that's it. If somebody reads something and feels a connection with my point of view, then that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So as your book is this collection of prose and poetry, what is it that you love the most about poetry and poems?
It's funny because I'm not actually, I like to, sometimes when I like a poem, I really like a poem. However, I don't really go out seeking poetry, and as a genre in itself, it's kind of a strange thing. So I prefer that people pick up one poem and read that, and that impact them. Or oh, sorry, what was the question?
What you love most about poetry?
Oh, what do I love most? I would say probably the beauty in two lines. When you get two lines that look so well together, I think it's kind of it's a music in your brain. I love when you get two lines together that sound really well. Or just even funny stuff. I was with my wife yesterday and we were talking about my slightly eccentric aunts. And without naming names, I said, one aunt is a bit cooky, but the other one really takes the biscuit. And I like that. Just
Yeah, that sounds good.
accidental stuff. But language is great, and it's just a fantastic medium because it brings in different people's meanings and variation on words, and I think poetry gives us the broadest spectrum. There's so many more words than shades of color, I would imagine. I mean, I probably have a preference for it, but and I love discovering new things as well. New ways of putting things together and rhyme and things that don't rhyme and then suddenly do, or yeah.
So do you have a favorite piece in your book? It ain't easy sometimes.
I think my favorite piece, and the one that's most personal to me, I think, is Breaking and Mending, the Softness of Dark, because it's about very early parenthood, and it's a very fond memory for me, and the sleepless nights of having a young child, and the sort of the tiredness, and how you cope with that, and how it just it's the days turn into long never-ending nights in some ways. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. So are you planning on writing more books?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I have a novel in the works, a young adult novel that I've been working on for many years, that I'd hope to get published. But I think I will keep writing the poetry as well, because it's something that I'm driven to do. And whether I publish it in book form or not, I'll keep writing poetry anyway. So it entertains me a bit as well. So yeah.
And who would you say should definitely buy your book?
I would say it's pretty good for a broad range of people, but I would say specifically people that don't usually buy poetry. I think it's very accessible, and like I said, it's kind of for the everyday person. So I think it would make a good present, I think, in that terms, if somebody has never bought a book of poetry, or there is somebody that might like poetry, then I think it's a good introduction, for young and old, I think. Yeah. It's probably not overly academic, or that, I'm not particularly good at sticking to rules of poetry or writing. So I think the amateur poetic, I think would be ideal.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I also want to ask, how was working with Tribes Press for you?
Oh, working with Tribes Press was fantastic. Yeah, I found there's an awful lot of support from Tribes, and yeah, they really believe in my work and what I'm trying to do, and yeah, it's fantastic to have a publisher in Galway as well. I feel very, very connected to Galway, and I think it has a good literary history, and it's important that yeah, many poets have come out of Galway, and it's important for us to have that. So Tribes Press is fantastic. I think I looked at a number of publishers, and the name jumped out at me straight away, and I thought, oh, Galway publisher, yeah, absolutely for me. So yeah, I'm very happy with them.
That's so nice. Nice to hear. Is there anything you would like to add in the end regarding your book, or something else you would like to say?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just hope people enjoy it. I hope it gives somebody nice something to think about, or yeah, I'd like to see fathers pick it up as well. I think it's a good present for fathers. And yeah, and I have a few Ethiopian friends as well that I'd like to get a copy to as well. So but yeah, thank you very much. That's fantastic.
I thank you very much for the interview. It was really a pleasure talking to you, and that you took the time to do the interview. So yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye.